Everybody, I'm really glad to be with you. I know you're covering the situation in Europe closely, and so I want to update you on what the department's doing to support Ukraine and to uphold our ironclad commitment to our NATO allies. As you know, for months now, Russia has been deploying forces to Crimea and along Ukraine's border, including in Belarus. It has progressed at a consistent and steady pace involving tens of thousands of Russian troops. And it is being supported by increased Russian naval activity in the northern Atlantic and the Mediterranean Sea. While we don't believe that President Putin has made a final decision to use these forces against Ukraine, he clearly now has that capability. And there are multiple options available to him, including the seizure of cities and significant territories, but also coercive acts or provocative political acts like the recognition of breakaway territories. Indeed, we're seeing Russian state media spouting off now about alleged activities in eastern Ukraine. Now, this is straight out of the Russian playbook, and they're not fooling us. We remain focused on Russian disinformation, including the potential creation of pretext for further invasion or strikes on Donbass. And any Russian attack or further incursion into Ukraine would not only ignite conflict, it would also violate the bedrock principles of national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and self-determination. So this is something that we're taking very seriously, both as a strong partner of Ukraine and as one of 30 members of NATO, who are unified in opposition to Russia's attempts to undermine those core values and threaten peace and security in Europe. So let me be clear on where things stand today. First, conflict is not inevitable. There is still time and space for diplomacy. The United States, in lockstep with our allies and partners, has offered Russia a path away from crisis and toward greater security. And the Department of Defense will continue to support those diplomatic efforts. Second, the United States remains committed to helping Ukraine defend itself through security assistance material. And since 2014, we've committed more than $2.7 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. And that includes more security assistance to Ukraine in the past year, $650 million, than at any previous time. And so in December, President Biden authorized $200 million in assistance, which included additional javelins and other anti-armor weapons, grenade launchers, large quantities of artillery and small arms ammunition, and other equipment. Those deliveries are ongoing. Indeed, another shipment just arrived today. And third, the United States will stand shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies. And that includes reinforcing security on NATO's eastern flank. And as you know, we placed thousands of U.S. troops on prepare to deploy orders earlier this week. If NATO activates its response forces, these troops will be ready to go. Now, the situation on Ukraine's borders is changing rapidly. But as we look ahead, there are a couple of things that we can count on. One, this department will continue to provide President Biden with options to defend our national security interest in response to Russian actions. And two, we will stay united with our NATO allies. Earlier this week, I spoke with my Polish counterpart. Yesterday, I spoke with my Romanian counterpart. And this morning, I had two very good conversations with my counterparts in France and Germany. As we've made clear, in addition to the significant economic and diplomatic costs that Russia will incur, a move on Ukraine will accomplish the very thing Russia says it does not want: a NATO alliance strengthened and resolved on its western flank. The United States will contribute to NATO's response forces, and we will coordinate with our NATO allies. And we will make sure that they have the capabilities that they need to defend themselves. Article 5 is clear on this point. An attack against one NATO member is an attack against us all. And as President Biden has said, the United States holds this as a sacred obligation. And we will do right by that commitment. And Mr. Putin can do the right thing as well. There's no reason that this situation has to devolve into conflict. He can choose to de-escalate. He can order his troops away. He can choose dialogue and diplomacy. Whatever he decides, the United States will stand with our allies and partners.
And good afternoon to everyone, and I appreciate having an opportunity to address all of you. Ukraine has the right to be independent, and they have been an independent country since 1991. Russia signed the Budapest Memorandum in 1994 with the United States and Great Britain that guaranteed the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. It's the policy of the United States government to continue to support an independent Ukraine and their goals, and we are continuing our effort to enhance their ability to protect themselves. We strongly encourage Russia to stand down and to pursue a resolution through diplomacy. Armed force should always be the last resort. Success here is through dialogue. The Russian Federation has amassed upwards at this time of over 100,000 ground forces, air forces, naval forces, special forces, cyber, electronic warfare, command and control, logistics, engineers, and other capabilities along the Ukraine border. Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe with a population of 44 million. It's divided in the middle by the river Dnipro. Prominent terrain includes flat, open plains, and there are abundance of rivers and lakes, and there's a high water table. And when that high water table freezes, it makes it for optimal conditions for cross-country tracked and wheeled vehicle maneuver. The city of Kiev has a population of nearly 3 million people. Other major population centers include Kharkiv or Kharkov, Donetsk, Odessa, Dnipro, and Lviv in the west. There are many people and highly dense population centers throughout Ukraine. And if war were to break out on a scale and scope that is possible, the civilian population will suffer immensely. The Ukraine military has about 150,000 active duty service members, with many more in the reserves. They consist of multiple units, sea, air, land, and they are currently disposed and arrayed throughout Ukraine with a high density on the eastern section and a line of contact in the Donbas region. Ukraine has other units, and they maintain artillery, air defense, airfields, bases, depots, and they have a highly regarded territorial force and people's militia. Their combat capabilities have improved since 2014, when Russia annexed illegally Crimea. But they need additional help to defend themselves, especially from an invasion force the size that Russia is currently massing. If Russia chooses to invade Ukraine, it will not be cost-free in terms of casualties or other significant effects. There is a small contingent of U.S. and NATO advisors and trainers currently in Ukraine. The United States has zero offensive combat weapon systems, nor any permanent forces nor bases in Ukraine. Our role is limited in that we help train, advise, and assist with tactics, techniques, and procedures. We participate in institutional development of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. As the Secretary of Defense has noted, we continue to provide military material support to Ukraine along with many other countries from NATO. And we are ready, capable, and prepared to uphold our obligation under treaty to NATO. As mentioned by the Secretary, an attack against one NATO ally is an attack against all. NATO has significant military capability. NATO has approximately 130 plus brigades of maneuver forces, not including U.S. forces, 93 squadrons of high-end fighters, 4 carriers, many more surface combatants. The military capability of NATO is very, very significant. In addition to bordering Russia and Belarus and Moldova, Ukraine has a border with 4 NATO members: Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. The President and the Secretary of Defense have authorized the United States military to increase our readiness in the event we have to reinforce or assist our NATO allies. War is not inevitable, as the Secretary said. The right answer here is a diplomatic solution. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Chairman.